Man, how long have we been working out here in complete isolation, Si? One week, we're trying to get surf mode toggles to make sense. The next, we're replacing every tiny piece of text with a new pixel font. Then we're adding gradients to all those letters, which only makes them like 20% cooler, but you have to do it to make the game look awesome at a glance. You look back at the calendar and a whole month has passed. Then we got to take some time to fix bugs because certain pieces of the game don't get along. And then it's panic mode trying to get those rowdy NPCs to behave, chopping off features from the list to handle them later. Some fuss is had about what features to keep and what's way more time consuming than we thought. And bada boom, bada bing, next thing you know, the Pinto Isle demo is finally out. 4 months later than expected, but yeah, that's game development. You can see why certain games could benefit from some extra time in the oven. But now it's here. After 4 long years, you can finally run around and make the elemental ponies smack each other senseless. And it rules! It's amazing how far we've come since the agonizing heartbreak of losing all the overworld functionality in 2018. People can finally go play this. See all that's changed. The pickups, the peoples, the battles. It all feels like a nice little game loop now. The whole thing's more engaging now that it feels like you're in this entire little world with interesting things going on. The combat is fun, but the context makes it matter. We're on the home stretch of feature implementation. What's left, as far as essential features go? Upgrade selections, some more battle math, a couple more menus, travel moves, ultra forms, and pony capturing mechanics, yeah? By the time this goes up, we'll already be halfway done with those. And if you're not on our Patreon, you likely haven't heard a peep from us since New Year's. But we're finally getting those final core mechanics into a playable state. The whole catch-all ponies aspect in particular.
Which is pretty strange, a capturing monster tamer game, and the capture mechanic is built so late into the process. But it's been ironed out the whole time, so it's not like it wasn't thought about. We tried to build some anticipation and really make the capturing aspect of it feel like you did something, or when it failed, you sort of feel the failure, I guess, in the sense like the crystal breaks apart and it falls away. So there's definitely a lot of feelings that we're trying to give the player: excitement, anticipation, a chance to say hooray or a chance to say aw.
I insisted on that. Timing the animation based on what I expect the player to feel during that catch 'em sequence, holding your breath, hearing the heartbeat, butt clenching tighter with each gym shake, hoping the red health, poison shiny you encounter doesn't break out for the 5th time. Then once it does, stall it long enough for the player to go ah in anguish.
Yeah, that was definitely a more interesting part of how you would judge how long something should be, is that knee-jerk reaction of I'm disappointed.
As far as coding goes, this was one of the most straightforward tasks yet. The time-consuming bit was handling all that menu stuff we wanted to show afterwards.
From a programming perspective, I just sort of have to chain animations together and then update some random values for the player of, okay, you caught this pony, and you caught this pony with this capture gen. To make development easier, I had the configuration aspect to it to where you could change all the timing of animations and when things should just appear and disappear. We built sort of an outro to battle based on other monster capture games. So you're going to see Harponapedia, which is the equivalent of like a textbook entry of the information of this pony. But we sort of add a couple extra features where you could sort of configure the moves on the fly from there and then add the pony directly to your team, so you don't have to go somewhere. You can, like, you wanted to catch the pony, so you'd want to put it in your team. So why do you want to travel someplace else to then get that pony in your team? It's just more fun if you could just sort of grab it and go. But with the outro, yeah, we went through a couple different screens of letting you configure all the different type of information that you might want to for a pony, which basically boils down to its moveset, its name, and what position in the party you want it to sit at.
And for all this stuff, we've been using test scenes to get the pacing down. Made one for all the level up fanfare too. See, now we've got this upgrade system where each time you level up, you get to pick a major stat to increase. Classic Paper Mario style. Your health, your mana bar, or your power essentially. That should lead to some very interesting builds and varied playthroughs of the game. But all the fancy animations required for it, need extra TLC to look right. This is an exciting event after all. We're leveling up here. You only get to do it 100 times, and each time should feel like yes!
So it was made in a very similar way. We actually started using these, or creating custom scenes for making a more test environment to test out these animations before we plug them into the main game. Doing that allowed for rapid testing of it before I give it off to Yotes, to where he'll just fine-tune all the numbers.
Sweet knobs and switches. All I need is those knobs and switches. I can get as nitpicky with the details as I want without having to explain the unarticulatable. Then there was the matter of showing the values increasing on screen to convey to the player how big a deal it is that they've chosen to increase something. You gotta make the numbers flow into each other to see the before and after to get the full effect.
And chaining all of those like little animations together, showing your stat increases, letting you pick between the 3 categories, making it very apparent which stats are going up. It took a while. It took like a week.
We're actually taking some extra time to separate all the animated events like this to make tweaking things more efficient. Doing it for individual moves, other animated UI events, and especially for pacing out cutscenes. That's kind of the scariest thing on the horizon right now. But getting that done would be like the final huge unknown hurdle between now and release. It's essentially getting all our overworld AI systems to communicate with each other, as well as an abstract sort of director entity telling them what to do and when to do it.
It's definitely one of the bigger, if not the biggest, to tackle. And it's going to offer some of the greatest benefits for adding lots of feel to the game just in general. And we want to build it in a way that makes it easy to implement and build on top of itself. So we don't want to, for lack of a better term, hard code all the animations. We want a system where Yotes or I can just sort of move certain entities around, tell them when to come in and do either some sort of animation or talk, or maybe even give you an item, or express themselves through emotes and means of interacting with the world around it, running into a wall, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen weirdo behavior from NPCs like the Moonwalker here. To know that the instructions we think we're giving to the NPCs are interpreted through like 4 Google Translate filters to computer speak, and it is just not what we intended. We need to set a clear and simple list of actions that work 100% of the time on their own and together. Also, the systems on top can let us generically command one thing, and that turns into tens of simple commands in a certain order by the time the character gets the message.
So wanting to build such a dynamic system like that, we did a little bit of research up front, but there's still more that we're going to have to go into to really make that system in a way that can be scalable and used repetitively to complete the game.
And make it dummy proof so we don't have things like glitch walking straight through people's personal space. These bugs, man! Every other time we add in a new feature, something completely unrelated breaks.
Okay, yeah. So there's just been so many when like you build something and you think it's gonna work like a certain way, but then like you run the game and there are aspects of the code that you don't think about because the code base is just so big that you only made it work for the little scenarios that you were focusing on. So once you get into the game, I think in my head, if I were, I don't know, a speedrunner, how would I try to break this game? And then I try to implement those tactics. And sometimes I run into very awkward errors and sometimes I don't. And then the community finds them instead. So it's always an interesting seesaw. Like I fix something, something else shows up. But the main goal is to avoid errors that will happen while you play the game. If the error only exists from the user trying to make that error exist, then it's not as bad. So if you accidentally do the error, it's a bad thing, and I'm going to try to remove all of those as much as possible. And then if you're trying to break the game, I mean, if you're smart enough, go ahead and inject assembly into the game to just break everything.
smart enough. I think it's just you're chaotic enough to try glitch walking through people, minding their own business. These poor innocent townsfolk. You're just gonna phase through their matter. It's rude.
Yeah, right now I think you can swim through land if you cut into the land at the right location.
I know for a fact you could swim through those rocks because I didn't put wall tiles down there. Oh boy, stuff like that is the reason why there's a patrons only build. We're still ironing things out. This isn't for the greater public just yet.
It keeps you on your toes and it makes game development more interesting than you probably want it to be. And more frustrating, I guess. But I don't know, I like the little challenges.
Any top tier backers and patrons on our Discord can see our Daily Neigh channel, where we're posting the work being done every single day. You'll find a long list of mostly bugs and script overhaul. But like, no joke, if we listed everything right here, it'd be longer than the Avengers endgame credits. Up until now, it's been a lot of work with little to show for it. But now we're into the juicy stuff people can see and play with.
I think it's cool to keep the community up to date, but it also lets the community know that we're constantly doing work every single day. We're not going on a hiatus or stopping, and we pump out a Daily Neigh 6 out of 7 days a week. I like seeing it, and I like seeing when users talk about it, or like our community talks about it, or they ask for updates too from time to time. So the interested people have a way to keep us on our toes, so to speak, so that we can continue to provide what the community wants.
You know, I bet that Daily Neigh list is still scrolling. Anyways, we've got a sleek new look to things too. Back to back with the old build, the overworld looks a lot better. UI is a bit cleaner, the movement's smoother, and we're actually anchoring UI to look good on all devices instead of just my phone.
That's always nice for the UI to look good on most devices. There's still some cleaning up we got to do, but they're in the more extreme cases, so it's not too bad.
And you can talk to your pony now. You'll see it say different things in different contexts all over the map. And what's extra sweet is you can pet your pony now, a highly requested feature.
Yeah, the interacting with your pony is there's a lot that we plan on doing with it, and there's different scenarios that you can interact with your pony now. So if you haven't tried the demo, you should talk to your pony everywhere, see what happens.
But now we're trying out controller support to make the whole experience even smoother for folks who prefer gaming that way. You've been going deep into it and creating an all-new Yotes input manager to talk with all that hardware through the Rewired plugin.
Rewired in itself is the backing, I guess, little framework. It's the thing that sort of interacts with all of the controllers for us. So if any of you have ever plugged a controller into your computer, you know you got to plug it in with a USB or use Bluetooth or something like that. Rewired manages that for us, and it allows us to add controllers and remove them pretty easily. So if we ever want a guitar or a dance pad, or I don't know, if you want a Toby eye tracker so you can play the game with your eyes, we could probably set something up like that to do it.
Remember how they got that fish to do a Twitch plays Pokemon type deal? Sky's the limit when it comes to anything's a controller.
But with that, I built something called the Yotes Input Manager because I sort of like to only incorporate the few features that I need. And where it's a little more complicated is how I'm sort of managing it from screen to screen. So if you open up the menu, you don't want the main character to just start walking, or you don't want to hit the action button on your Ponypedia menu item and talk to an NPC in the overworld. So I have to balance how I'm sort of sending the input controls to which screen. But in the future, we have to set it up so that every screen can sort of have its own look and feel. And like when you hit left or right, where does it go? Is there a button to the left or right? If there's not, then where's it supposed to go? Stuff like that. That can be a little more tedious with the setup.
I think we finally settled into working as a team after like a year and a half doing this together. Like a really efficient machine going on here. Like I'll start like plotting out a task in as much detail as possible. I'll use graphics and bullet points and paragraphs detailing everything out in ClickUp, and I'll do that like 1 or 2 days before you get around to finishing up whatever task you're currently on. You move on to that one. It's like clockwork. How do you feel about our process and how it's changed since like a year ago, when it was sort of like an in-person, making it up as we go sort of deal?
I wish we could sort of record it, like just to see the evolution of how a team can work together. Because when you do work together with people, it's sort of hard to look at your process and sort of envision a way that the processes can be better. I think just companies in general have a hard time doing that. And then they make up different terms and strategies that sort of everyone starts to copy. So if anyone's ever heard of agile development, that's like a good example. One person did agile and it worked for them, so every company sort of copies it. But definitely here, working with Yotes and for Yotes Games, we have seen from basically what Yotes said is where we used to just sit and talk and build it together into this task is a feature, and that feature then has subtasks that sort of break down what it means for this feature to be completed. And then Yotes will, I swear it's like 2,000 words, like 8 images and all the specifics for like this audio file, this specific color hex value needs to go here. And those type of details are just removing questions that are going to be asked later on. So instead of me having to message Yotes to say, hey, what does this look like? Or what does this do? I can, for the most part, complete a feature without getting Yotes involved. You're never going to get everything. I think it would defeat the point of working with a team if you never work with your team. So usually as we build on, sometimes we do get different ideas and the story is no longer what we want to build. So we'll change it, we'll mark it in the story or the task, and then we'll just have a history of everything that sort of happened with that feature.
I'll flesh out details to the best of my ability at the moment of conception. But it always changes by the end, because some new details will come up when you're actually doing it. Then we gotta shift course a little, or come up with a simple, clever solution to an over-engineered problem. This method's working well for us so far. No complaints here. We're checking things off faster. On Discord helps. Like when we're working, it's just a matter of popping in with a quick question. We'll answer it real quick. And then you can just show, like screen share and just show what it currently looks like. Then comes the more details, like, oh, okay, yeah, we missed a spot here. Let's detail this out. Work on this. And then you go out of your way to make things like extra flexible for me and give me all the inspector widgets to mess around with. Like, okay, we know there's some amount of timing gonna be involved with this. Like, here's just a variable and you can enter whatever number you want in here. Let's just start with the 2 seconds, or is it always 1.5 seconds? Isn't that my favorite number apparently?
It's 0.5 or 1 second or 1.5. Those are the common ones you do. And my number is 0.25. Sort of my way of doing the same thing that Yotes does with the stories. Like, I don't want to build something and Yotes come back to me later and say, I want to change this animation from, we'll say, 1 second down to half a second. And that require a code change and recompiling it. So,
that is the wrong color. That is not the orange I wanted. All right. Jeez, that's more of a yellowish tangerine. Come on now. This is supposed to be a bright, fiery orange red. Ugh.
Get me some red ribbon. No, that's not red. That's cherry. No, that's not red. That's cinnamon. For Pete's sake, it's all red.
Yeah. So definitely giving Yotes the tools to make these changes on his own keeps the developers out of the build process. So now the designer can work in his own space, the developer can work in their own space, and there's not a lot of stepping on toes. Yeah, I don't really know sort of how to add to it, but it's been getting better and much better, and it's been easier. And I think we're sort of seeing that in the more recent times. We've sort of been posting GIFs and more I want to say, exciting updates instead of just like, oh, fix some bugs over here. Now it's like, oh, we implemented a whole new feature.
Oh, you mean the game you made works now? Cool. Cool story. Looking forward to Everfree Northwest. That's coming up in August, late August, and we really want to have our public demo out by then, just so the world can see how far this game has come since the Kickstarter.
The last time we went to Everfree, that was one of the first conventions that I went to where I was sort of showcasing a product. So I think, like, in itself, that was just a grand experience, and I'm excited to experience it again. But now we're much further along. We're probably going to see the same or similar people that we saw before. So it'll be interesting to show off the evolution of the product to these people who have sort of already seen it, and then meet new people. And then, as always, it's like being online, you get to talk to a lot of people and talk to the community, but like seeing them in person sort of adds a more personal feel and makes you appreciate the work that you're doing a little bit more when you can see the reaction of people and you can ask them questions directly, see what they like, what they don't like. And I think that's just an important aspect of game development in general.
One of my favorite things is coming across a Let's Play of Battle Gym Ponies. Those are always where I get just tons of notes scribbled down, like, oh my goodness, we missed a spot here, or oh, that feedback wasn't very clear, or oh man, a screen shake right there would have made everything so much better, or oh my gosh, somebody laughed at my joke. I'm validated.
Every Saturday we dig around and look for more videos, and we'll watch it together as a team because it helps inspire us to continue and stay headstrong and focused.
Guess it's time to get back to work now. Looking forward to sharing more with you guys. Hang tight. Plenty of new demos on the way throughout 2022. Thanks for checking up on us.
Peace out, and see y'all at the Everfree Northwest.
Another devlog up by then. We post pretty consistently, right?
There you are. I haven't seen you guys in months.
Time flies when you're doing what you love, Cal. Sometimes it feels like we're off on our own little island.